Hey there, welcome to Product Marketing Genius. I'm your host, Nitin Karthik. As Director of Product Marketing and a top product marketing voice, I've always found that real world case studies are the true litmus test for the effectiveness of any product marketing strategy. And that is why, in this show, we dive into the minds of industry titans, as well as rising stars, unpacking their expertise in action packed episodes that showcase the power of product marketing through real world case studies. And today, my friends, we are joined by product marketing genius Jonathan Pipek, who is CEO at Manta Consulting. Over his 10 plus year career, Jonathan has led teams of product marketers to launch 5 cybersecurity SaaS products in under 3 years. He's also increased the average deal size by over 30%. He has slashed his support costs by up to 40%. And Jonathan has also increased revenue by 200% through the product launches, and he's also trained hundreds of sales reps. Furthermore, Jonathan has also co-led events and increased his qualified pipeline, and he's created co-marketing programs with numerous vendors, and these have resulted in game-changing integrations. Now, as CEO at Blue Manta Consulting, Jonathan helps B2B SaaS companies establish their GTM strategy and accelerate their growth. And with that, it's an absolute honor, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome Jonathan. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nitin. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Jonathan, as promised, we're going to give our audience an exciting story from your background. We'll use the ABC framework. So, we'll talk about the antecedents or what were the prior challenges. We'll talk about the behaviors, what were some of the actions that you took, and we'll talk about the conclusion. How did things play out? So, with that, Jonathan, pick a situation from your experience and tell us what were the antecedents, what were the prior challenges?
Sure, absolutely. So let's see. I worked at a B2B SaaS startup that had two major go-to-market issues. So those problems were really derailing their sales, like absolutely. And the two problems were like this. The first one was that they had developed strong differentiated positioning. And that was a really big problem because their core product was essentially treated like a commodity. They didn't really have a strong product narrative to get out of that mindset. That also meant that their sales team didn't have an impactful story to tell, which meant prospects dismissed them really easily. Competitors blew them out of the water, both in terms of marketing and in terms of sales. So that obviously wasn't great. But then the second problem that really compounded that issue was that on top of that lack of strong differentiated positioning, they had way too many products. In over a decade in B2B marketing, I've never worked at a company that had so many products, along with really, really complex pricing. To give you like a tangible example of what that means, their rate card, the one that showed all of their products and pricing, I think it was like 30 plus pages long. So there was literally not a single person in the company that knew all the products, which meant some products were updated every quarter and others hadn't been touched in years. And I guarantee you there was nobody in sales that knew everything we sold either. So those were kind of the two major issues.
Wow. And two issues with so many sub issues. Oh my God, Jonathan, I can only imagine. Like this seems like a basket case. So, all right. So you've told us about the challenges. Now let's talk about some of the behaviors. What were some of the actions you took to like unravel and improve the situation?
Yeah, so I mean, the really good news was that when I came in, these were already well-known problems, and I was hired specifically and brought in to fix them. So what that meant is I had buy-in from the get-go, so that made it a lot easier. The first thing I really did was put together a cross-functional team because as a company, these problems had already been identified, had already been understood. There was already buy-in, so I could very easily get together folks, leaders from marketing, from sales, product, account management, finance, support, etc. And what we did is we all agreed on what problems we were facing, kind of like you and I just did, right? We outlined the problems, determined, okay, these are our problems. What are our objectives? So, usually a lot of times it was the opposite, right? We have poorly defined or no positioning. We want strong differentiated positioning. We have an incredible amount of products that we just can't stay on top of. We want very few products, so on and so forth. And in this case, it was, developing compelling positioning and a sales pitch that was derived from that positioning, and then simply, making our packaging more streamlined. So the next things we did were basically those two objectives. We broke down into key results that laddered up to them. We chose a lot of them, but the most important ones were essentially increase in our win rate percentage. And then what we also did, which I think is really critical for product marketing especially, is we surveyed the sales team before and then after the work we did, because what we wanted to do is get feedback and ratings from them to understand how they saw our positioning and packaging, how they dealt with competitors, what prospects thought. And then we also did something similar with customers. So we sent out a survey through an in-app tool, asking questions as well. From there, since we had kind of our objectives, key results, KPIs set, we created a high-level plan. So whenever I go in these situations, I really prefer to just come up with something, right? I think it's really hard to create from scratch. It's so much easier to just rip things apart. So I go into these cross-functional meetings, I'll meet with the product team and I'll go in there with a plan, and then they'll tell me. It's very easy for them to say, oh, this is wrong, this is right, you forgot about this, let's add that, so on and so forth with sales, customer success, etc. And really reshape it to make sure it meets their needs and incorporates their suggestions. So did that with kind of the plan to fix this. Once we had a plan in place, presented the plan to the executive team, got that approval, and then started working with the different teams very similarly to any major initiative.
Wow, I really love that. In fact, a couple of things that you mentioned there, I love how you kind of surveyed not just the external customers, but even the sales team. Sometimes, we forget like our own internal sales team, unless they're excited, we may not be able to get the results we need. So I love that, love that. Wonderful. So, Jonathan, you've told us about the antecedents, you've told us about the behaviors. Now the business end. Bring it home, Jonathan. Tell us the conclusion. How did this play out?
Yeah, so we basically achieved three main outcomes. So first, we repositioned the company, right, which was one of, I would say, probably the primary goal. Based on that repositioning, we crafted a really compelling sales pitch that connected with prospects and that sales reps actually believed in, right? They thought it made sense versus kind of a disjointed message we were saying before. And then we simplified the selling motion just by creating a bundle. So the repositioning work happened, in conjunction with the broader marketing team. We talked about, we talked to customers, learned how they viewed us, what their key pain points were, and how we solve them differently or better than our competition. We used those insights, plus obviously, people who had been in the company, knew the products, knew the different capabilities on the product side, product marketing, so on and so forth, to determine that positioning. The new sales pitch was based on that positioning. And then also what we did was we listened to the top sales reps pitches and just observed, how they pitched the company, what products they focused on. Also talked to customers, did some customer research, and combined that to really craft a narrative that was differentiated and really, really simple. And then the other thing we did on the analysis side, right, on the more analytical side, is we looked at what the actual sales were, and we realized that 80% of our sales consisted of 3 different products. So again, we had 30 plus pages of different products, and 80% of our sales came from 3. So what I did is I said, well, why don't we just bundle these as one offering? All the sales reps now just focus on selling that one bundle. Everything else we figure out later as a land and expand kind of process. What that did is, because that was our focus, we were able to kind of weave that into the sales pitch, make it really simple. And then the last thing we did was just test it, right? So we spent approximately 2 months testing this and iterating on it, tweaking it. I know you're not shocked that the first version we had wasn't perfect. Once we had kind of that really solid version, we launched it, trained the entire company on it, obviously doing more deep dive sessions with the sales reps. And it really had a monumental impact on the company. Apart from your classic like increasing the win rate, differentiating our company and products, getting everyone aligned, there was one really surprising result that I'm personally proud of, just because we work really closely with sales. Several sales leaders reached out to me, in the few months after we launched this, to tell me that sales rep onboarding had actually gotten reduced by weeks. So before, and I don't remember the exact stats, but let's say it took 2-3 months to onboard someone, just because of the sheer number of products, a sheer number of different complex pricing, inconsistent sales pitches and positioning. So instead of focusing on learning that 30-page rate card, they just focused on that one bundle, and it made it much easier to sell and onboard.
Wow. I mean, this is amazing, Jonathan. I think a couple of lessons that our audience can learn from this is less is more, right? You talked about how you went from like a 30-page rate card to essentially one bundle of like the top 3 products. And this is something that I think companies like Apple actually did under Steve Jobs, where, they were selling like so many different things. And he came in and said, guys, we're just selling like 4 things. And he slashed it down. And I think there's also another saying that, wisdom is not just knowing what to do, but also what not to do. Right. So instead of like the 30-page rate card, let's not do all of that. Let's focus on, the money makers. Love it. Love it. So wonderful. I think this is a great story. And I think I learned a lot, and I think our audience would learn a lot too. So, Jonathan, thank you for that. Where can people find out more about you and learn and connect with you?
Sure, absolutely. So my LinkedIn is the best place for people to learn more about me. I post about startup marketing, go-to-market, and product marketing really regularly.
Very cool. So, folks, definitely check out Jonathan on LinkedIn and connect with him, talk with him, and pick his mind, with all the amazing insights that he has had. So, Jonathan, once again, thank you. And, folks, armed with that knowledge, let's make the magic happen.